The top Z receiver target in the draft for Washington is a day 3 target, and the best value, it comes in the form of Jeff Caldwell out of Cincinnati.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I am your host, your guy on the ground, David Harrison. And on today's episode, we are taking the next step forward in our Commanders NFL Draft Big Board series. Talked about the power slot receiver group in the last episode. Now we're moving on within the receiver group, but now we're moving to the Z receiver group, as the receiver group itself is going to be broken up into 4 subgroups, and then we'll ball it all together to get a top 10 receiver big board all put together, and then move on to the rest of the position groups for the Washington Commanders. But with this new Ben Johnson-esque type of offense that we expect David Blough to put together, a little bit more detail to the receiver group required, other than just saying, here are the good receivers in this NFL draft. And we're starting it all off here today, talking again about the Z receivers. Here are the top 10 big board names, however you want to call it, for my Commander Z receiver list. And we need to understand something here. The big board is just that. It's a big board. It's basically the biggest fit, the best fit for what we think the Washington Commanders are going to want. Not the order they're going to get drafted in, not even the order I think they should get drafted in. Understand the scope of what we're talking about here. These are the guys that most fit the physical profile of what we think the Washington Commanders are going to want for that Z receiver moving forward under David Blough. The top guy in this year's NFL draft class that fits that profile, Cincinnati wide receiver Jeff Caldwell. Coming in second, North Dakota State receiver Bryce Lance. Yes, he is the brother of Trey Lance. Tennessee receiver Brazzell comes in third. Oregon receiver Malik Benson comes in fourth. Ole Miss receiver De'Zhaun Stribling comes in fifth. LSU receiver Xavier Thomas is sixth. Mississippi State's Brennan Thomas is seventh. Arizona State's Jordan Tyson is eighth. Ohio State's Carnell Tate is ninth. Georgia State's Ted Hurst is 10th. And when we get to the best value of the groups, Jeff Caldwell at number 147 would be the best value for the Washington Commanders as a 5th round pick. Would be that best value. Malik Benson as a 7th round pick, number 223, would be the best values, or the second best value. Xavier Thomas would be the 3rd best value at number 187. So we're going to get through how we got to that discovery or that conclusion here during the course of this episode. And again, got to give the disclosure, not a scouting department. I'm just one dude, watch as much tape as I can and leaning on some guys out there that I trust who have the time and have sometimes departments behind them to put information together as well, and just kind of collecting it all for you here, putting together these reports that we have out there, and from my own perspective, my own opinions, just kind of compiling it all here as we get through all of this. We will watch some tape as we get through this whole thing. All access members, you will get copy of that tape as we go through, but we're got hundreds of players to talk about here as we get through this whole thing. And so again, scouting departments, there are multiple people watching, 300 plus prospects. I'm just one guy. So just understand the lens that we're looking through here. So we start off, like I said, by in the last episode, like I said, by identifying athletic profiles, and we use available measurements, use workout data. Then we'll turn to the tape as we get through the rest as we lead up to the NFL draft here in the future. Power slot, like I said, was already done. I think that's going to be the most important position on the David Blough offense from a receiver standpoint. Right now, we would look at Luke McCaffrey filling that power slot role. We've talked about Terry McLaurin getting slot reps. We talked about Traylon Burks also getting slot reps in that kind of mold as well in past episodes. But here today, vertical Z. And when you look at the David Blough, quote-unquote, Ben Johnson-esque offense, what you're looking for in the past from the Detroit Lions specifically is that Jameson Williams role that we're looking to fill here with a vertical Z type of receiver. Your vertical Z needs to be a lifter, right? Vertical. Talking about getting up the field fast, eating that cushion from defenders very, very quickly, getting out there, threatening that secondary, forcing the defense to get into those too high looks that defensive coordinators in today's NFL don't always like to get into, lifting that defense, spreading that defense out, opening up things, not just for yourself if you can get behind the defense, but also in the intermediate part for move tight ends like Chigakonkwo, for power slots like Luke McCaffrey, and of course for X receivers like Terry McLaurin, who would certainly love to take advantage of somebody else getting a little bit of attention. right? So that physical profile means that you need elite field tilting speed. And that's going to be why you might be confused from the big board. You see guys like Carnell Tate, who's a first-round pick, Jordan Tyson, who's expected to be a first-round pick. How are those dudes who are going to be first-round talents not at the top of this big board? Is because we're talking about profiles. We're talking about matches, not necessarily talking about overall ceilings and talent. We'll get to that. Believe me, just understand the difference between a big board and understand the difference between draft order and where we think players are going to go in the NFL draft. I know Daniel Jeremiah, who does his top 50 all year long, goes through this conversation every single offseason. So hopefully we understand each other with the difference here. Primary function, again, is to clear out that deep third of the field on their side of the field, force those two high safety shells, creating advantages underneath while also winning on top on your side of the field when you get the opportunity. The current fit on the current roster, none. There is none. There is no lid lifting extra Z receiver that I think is just boom, put him in there today, and you feel at least over 50% comfortable. You do have some candidates, certainly, and I don't want to be disrespectful to any of these guys, but we just got to be honest here, right? The other positions we're going to look at moving forward after we get done with the Z's here is the boundary X receiver, which obviously is going to be Terry McLaurin. We're also going to look at motion and gadget players that can fit that Khalif Raymond role that they had in Detroit under Ben Johnson. Currently, I've got Jalen Lane sitting there, and that's kind of where we sit, right? Luke McCaffrey's that power slot. Terry McLaurin's that starting X. Jalen Lane is your gadget. The starting Z, I think right now I would put Dyami Brown in that spot. But just remember, man, we haven't seen Dyami Brown since 2024. We haven't seen him. We didn't see him all through 2025. He went through experiences there. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how he's going to be coming back in 2026. We have high hopes. I have high hopes. He's in Los Angeles working out with Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, certainly putting in the work, putting in the grind, and you respect the hell out of it. But I can't sit here and tell you, boom, Dyami Brown's your Z, book it, nail it down. I can't tell you that. So that leaves an opening there. That leaves a need there. Developmental rotational Zs, I do think Dyami Brown could compete. I think Van Jefferson could also compete. I think Dyami could also compete for rotational reps at the X. If Terry McLaurin moves into the slot, or if Terry McLaurin goes and gets Z receiver snaps, Dyami Brown could certainly try to fight in there. The top 6 receivers today, the guys that I would put on the initial 53, McLaurin, McCaffrey, Lane, Jefferson, Brown, Treylon Burks. Those are the 6 guys that I would put on the initial 53-man roster today. So obviously from that group, Dyami Brown and Van Jefferson would be your primary Z receivers trying to rotate in to get those needs. That leaves us with 2026 biggest needs. Z receiver is that number one need. You need to go find that guy. They tried with Alec Pierce. They tried with Romeo Doubs. Couldn't get it. They need to go get it here. Power slot is the next biggest need. Luke McCaffrey coming off the collarbone injury. Is he going to take another step? How is he going to fit into the system? Those are some questions. The gadget guy, I think, is your next biggest need if you have one. And then X, Terry McLaurin. I know he's getting a little bit older, but Terry is still Terry right now. So he goes beyond, or he fills that need much better than anybody else does in 2026. Now, in 2027, the Z, if you don't have one now, you don't have one then, right? So 2027, the Z receiver is still a top priority. X receiver is your second priority because Terry's getting another year older. We don't know what's going to happen this year. Power slot, Luke McCaffrey will be entering his contract year next year. Gadget receiver falls in less because at least Jalen Lane still has a couple of years of development in him before you really got to worry about that. Holistic needs, so the overall combination of the needs, Z receiver remains that top need. So while we did power slot first, was actually our second biggest need holistically. Z receiver, the top need here. That's why we go there for this. And when we get to our final mock draft, these needs are going to serve as our tiebreakers and elevators for certain players. Make sense? Hopefully you're following along now. We're going to get to the prospects, break down our top 10, break down why they're in the top 10, what I like about them, what concerns we have about them. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you in part by BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Financial stress is something a lot of people are carrying right now, and it's not just about numbers. It can affect your sleep, your relationships, and your overall mental health in ways that build up over time. And the reality is, struggling with money doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it just means you haven't had the right kind of support. It's something I thought about. How easy is it to put pressure on yourself financially without really even thinking about it or talking about it? The stress comes when you're trying to figure everything out on your own, the expectations that you have to feel like everything is just put together, and how that pressure can spill into other areas of your life. Therapy isn't about financial advice, but it's about working through the stress, the anxiety, and the emotions that come with it. And with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served, BetterHelp makes it easier to get matched and start focusing on what you need. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day to the Everydayers. Those of you come through for every single episode, thank you for coming through for yet another episode here today. If you haven't already, please check out the Everydayer Club, lockedoncommanders.supercast.com, to get ad-free episodes, get newsletters, get one-on-one texting with me, get so much more. Again, lockedoncommanders.supercast.com to check that out today. Continuing on with our episode here today, our big board series, getting rolling here. Second episode in the series. We're looking at the vertical Z receiver position. And again, we have some framework that we're kind of working with, some target, data lines that we're trying to sort through so that we're not trying to look at every single receiver in the NFL draft, but we're looking at a condensed group because, again, no scouting department sitting behind me, behind a false wall doing all the heavy lifting. We're doing this all by ourselves here. So height, 6'1". You want a guy who's about 6'1", if not taller. 6'1" is kind of that golden mark there for height. 180 pounds or so. 40-yard dash, you're looking for the 4.35 range or faster. 10-yard split, you're looking at a 1.5 range or faster in that 10-yard split. Showcase that kind of instant acceleration that you want for those clear out routes. We got them broken down here by tiers. Tier 1 is always going to be the unicorn tier, and it's not to say this is a unicorn as in he's going to be the next Randy Moss or he's going to be the next Jerry Rice. Not that kind of unicorn. We're talking about draft fits. That's all we're talking about, draft fits, how it works out, how the career goes. Those things are so tossed up to other factors like mental ability, coaching ability, scheme fit. If David Blough gets hired away in 2027, does the scheme fit still fit that guy? All the kinds of stuff, right? So we're just talking about 2026 NFL draft fits. Unicorns, tier 1, the guys that make the most sense. Usually they're like a 10 out of 10 fit, 9 out of 10 fit. If you're an 8 out of 10 fit, you're not going to be a unicorn, but you're still going to be up there. The unicorns here that we have in tier 1, we've got 2 guys. Neither of them are expected to be first round picks. So the first unicorn in here, we just talked about it. Obviously, you're going to expect it because you saw the list already or you heard the list already. Jeff Caldwell, Cincinnati wide receiver, our number one lid lifting Z target in the NFL draft for the Washington Commanders because he fits the mold the most clearly. He just kind of hits the nail on the head. Early day 3 prospect, 6'5", so he's well over that 6'1" threshold. 216 pounds, so he's well over that weight threshold. 4'3", 140, so he comes in below, and I mean by below, faster, right? That's good. Faster is below the 4.35, 4.3, 140. You got the 1.48 split, so again, faster than the 1.5 split that you really want, and he has a perfect 10 RAS score. In fact, RAS, relative athletic score, second RAS score all time among wide receivers since 1986. Gotta love that, right? Very high upside, developmental, deep threat, who's a little bit unconventional in the way that he got to this thing. 3 years at the FCS, 1,011 yards, 10 touchdowns in 2024, led to him transferring to Cincinnati. He added 25 pounds of mass to his frame in 2025. That, according to Dane Brugler of The Athletic in his draft Bible, I call it draft manifesto, like whatever, just really important book you want to call it. Maybe Bible is a little too up there, but whatever you want to call it, it is a draft manual, draft guide. The Beast is the nickname for it, right? It fits. Dane added in there that Caldwell added 25 pounds of mass. So leaning on Dane Brugler there for some in-depth information on top of the prospect here. Pure projection, which is why he's a day 3 guy, but he's got the athleticism. He's got the raw fundamentals. Again, this coaching staff calls themselves a developmental staff. They value teaching, all those kinds of things. Bobby Ingram, you take all those tools, you take that unicorn fit, and you turn it into a player that's going to work in this organization, in this David Blough offense. Again, the measurables, the athleticism, elite. That's the best way to put it. He's got the vertical threat ability. The catch radius is there. Body control shows up on tape. He's got good scoring and production in his history, and he's willing to get nasty as a blocker. That's something that David Blough told us that he wants out of his receiver group. It's not just making catches. It's not just running routes. It's also getting involved in run blocking. Now, his play strength, that's going to be a question. He is a little bit on the light side for his frame and all those things. So you're going to be a little bit worried there. Route nuance, right? Only 1 year in big-time college football. He's going to need some education there. He is a body catcher. He is a clap catcher. What is a clap catcher? ball's coming in, and instead of having your hand out with a diamond in there waiting for the ball to come meet your hands, you just kind of try to snatch it out of the air, closing your hands together like you're clapping, right? That's why I call it a clap catcher. Definitely needs to be worked on there. Yet again, another reason why he's considered a day 3 pick. Limited yards after catch ability. This is a big swing. Like, this guy would be a big swing. And if you're the Washington Commanders, you're looking at it, you're like, hey, like, we don't have a lot of picks, but man, in the 5th round, day 3, like, is this the kind of swing you really want to go out there and take? Could definitely be. Doesn't have the biggest refinement, definitely needs the NFL education, needs all that kind of stuff to go out there and make it happen. But you throw him on the field, you tell him to run fast down the field, he can do all that kind of stuff all day long. Our second guy on our list, Bryce Lane out of North Dakota State. Our second unicorn, fits the athletic profile to a T. And the athletic profile is a great place to start, but it's not the only place. That's why we talk about these things, right? Midday 3 pick, 6'3", 204 pounds, 4'3", 440, 149, 10-yard split, 998 RAS score. So again, highly athletic guy. We know Adam Peters loves those athletes. This is the kind of guy that fits that Jameson role as well. Yes, he is the younger brother of quarterback Trey Lance, who Adam Peters was part of the staff in San Francisco that traded up for and drafted Trey Lance, and then it didn't work out, and they ended up having to move on from him. I don't think that's necessarily going to stop anything here. Had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons at North Dakota State. Very long athlete. Like I said, elite straight line speed, that explosion. 4'3", 440 we already talked about, and he's an older prospect, so that is a little bit of a tricky situation. He's only got one game that I could find against an FBS opponent. You don't love that. The level of competition not being all that high. Same thing with Caldwell, right? He's got 3 years of FCS before he gets to 1 year of FBS. You don't really like that kind of stuff. But again, that's why he's a day 3 prospect. That's why he's a guy that you have to look at and say, can we develop him? Can we grow him? Because you have, like I said, unicorn fit. The fit is there. Like, if he's got every athletic tangible that you want in a player, can you turn those intangibles into production is the question. Could also develop into an X receiver in the future using his size, speed, ball tracking, which looks pretty good on tape and all those things as well. Kind of reminds people, not just because they both went to North Dakota State, but reminds people of Green Bay Packers receiver Christian Watson, interestingly enough. So again, boundary receiver, you love all those things. Tier 2 are the tall boundary burners, right? So these are taller guys. They're not quite as fast necessarily all across the board. They don't fit all of the metrics, but they are definitely very, very close. Chris Brazzell comes in number 3, 6'4", 198 pounds, 4'3", 740, 152, 10-yard split. So a little bit dragging on the 40, a little bit dragging on the 10-yard split, but certainly not slow, right? Like, he's definitely not slow there. Very, very close. Couple of ticks away from being another one of those unicorn fits. He's an early day 2 guy, and the Commanders don't have an early day 2 pick. Started his career in Tulane, ends up in Tennessee for his last 2 years. Really had a great season, 2025, 1,000-yard season, 7 touchdowns, 84.8 yards per game, which is great. You bring in that height, but you also bring in a little bit of a smaller frame. The only player at his height to come in under 200 pounds at the NFL Scouting Combine. So those are going to be things that you have to look for as well, and see if you can't maybe bulk him up a little bit, see if you can't play a little bit more physical. Comes in as a wide receiver 2 or 3 type of ceiling, but you got to get him there. Another guy that I've seen some draft profiles on him, some scouting reports comparing him to Christian Watson, which again, not a huge surprise. Could become a future X after starting off his season as a Z. Let's round out the top 5 here. Malik Benson is a midday 3 pick projection out of Oregon. Again, he was our second highest value pick into this list. Kind of fits an 8 out of 10 for the athletic profile. 6 foot tall, so a little bit shorter than you want. 189 pounds, 4'3", 740, 155, 10-yard split. A little slower on the draw there. 7.84 RAS, so not the highest RAS score in the bunch. Didn't go the FCS route, but did go the JUCO route. Played for Alabama, or he was with Alabama, was with Florida State. Then he ended up with Oregon, so he's traveled. So that's some teams view that as a positive, like you can assimilate and adjust to multiple systems. Some people will view that as, well, you couldn't stick with something. So the details behind it. So I hate calling, I try not to call these scouting reports. The term will slip every once in a while, but I really hate calling these scouting reports, because scouts, they get on ground, they talk to the families, they talk to the coaches, they talk to the teammates. I don't have the opportunity to do that. Even if I called all these people, I'm not Dane Brugler. I'm not getting phone calls back from all these people. So again, could be a positive, could be a negative. Led the Big Ten, was third in the Big Ten rather, with 15 catches for 20 yards or more, Dane Brugler dropping that in his beast. I thought that was really interesting, getting ready for this episode as well. Also has special teams value as a punt returner. And we know they got Jalen Lane, but you can never have too many punt returners on the field. So again, he's got that field stretching perimeter ability that you really want out of your future Z. He does have a slender frame. The speed alone is going to cause that defense to have to play over the top, things like that. But you're going to want to work on him not getting out muscled at the top of his routes, and that's going to come with, as Fred Smoot put it famously once, NFL stakes and NFL weights will certainly help him. There are fifth guy as we round out the top five here on today's episode, De'Zhaun Stribling, Ole Miss. And if you've listened to every single episode recently, just this week, I told you he's becoming one of my favorite wide receivers. As I've been going through this process, turned on some of his tape, and he was one of my favorite guys to watch. He is also projected to be a late day 3 guy, although you see some mocks with him going earlier. 6'2", 207 pounds, 4.36 40, 1.53 10, 9.88 RAS. So you know the RAS score is going to be on Adam Peters' radar. He is a more muscular type of boundary receiver, right? Not the frail type that we've been talking about with these last couple of guys. He's from Hawaii, multiple time transfer, Washington State, Oklahoma State. So again, he's either well traveled or couldn't stick. Like, how do you view it? What does the research say from the coaches, the family members, friends, and the teammates? With Ole Miss, he helped them not only make the college football playoff, but did really well. 3 games in the college football playoff this last season, 92.7 receiving yards across, or averaged across those 3 playoff games. One NFL scout, according to Dane Brugler's research, called him, said that he has the quote-unquote Hawaii chill, but trains like a Marine, which sounds like my kind of guy. A long strider who didn't have to run a complicated route tree in college, so that could be a little bit of a concern as well. Big-bodied athlete, again, has a straight line speed, very dependable hands, but he does have a lack of short area burst. But again, if you're looking to play that Jamison Williams role, you're not necessarily needing a lot of short area burst from him. Probably starts off as like a wide receiver 4, competing with a guy like Dyami to try to get those reps, things like that, but could certainly develop into your second receiver in a couple of years. You would still need to find an X. I don't see a future X in his future, but I think you have a good future Z if you want to get there. We've got 2 more tiers and some guys who are honorable mentions but left off the list coming up next as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Thank you again for coming through. Thank you for checking out WSA9.com for all my written work covering your Washington Commanders. Once we get through these receiver episodes, I will be dropping my top 10 receiver big board, overall receiver big board at WSA9.com. So stay tuned for that as we get through the rest of these receivers as well. Talking about the Z receiver group here, our tier 3, tier 4 guys that just barely missed the cut. Number 6, Xavier Thomas out of LSU. Look, he fits the profile. 5'10", 190 pounds. Again, 5'10", a little bit shorter, right? But he's fast. 4.28 40, 1.52, 10-yard split, 9.12 RAS. He is the 3rd best value, according to current mock drafts research that I was able to do. Play for LSU. Didn't start at LSU, started Mississippi State, but ended up at LSU. He can return kicks. He's done punts. I think he's better off as a kick returner, personally. So I think that you could do that to go there. Dane Brugler did mention that an NFL scout called him the energetic leader of the receiver room there in LSU. So that is very interesting information. Number 7 was Brennan Thomas, Mississippi State, 5'9". So obviously very, very short for the position. That hurts him in this metric because the rest of it, 4.2 640, 1.54 10-yard split. You love that. The 10-yard split could be a little bit faster, but the overall, obviously very good. Once he gets going, he gets going. The question is he too small? Are they just going to press him up, be physical at the line of scrimmage? Can he get off of it? That's what kind of holds him back from being higher up on this list. Could end up being more of a slot guy, which, look, the Washington Commanders could use a gadget guy, which Brennan Thompson could potentially fit into that gadget role for them, right? Tier 4, these are guys who are more X receiver than Z, so they're more outside on the line of scrimmage, but still Z enough to come in for 1 year, 2 years, play the Z opposite Terry McLaurin while they learn, develop, and grow, and eventually become your starting X receiver in the future. Jordan Tyson fits at 6'2", 203. Not a lot of physicals on him because he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. That injury history, listen, I'm hearing from some people that the injury history is concerning to some, hearing from some that the injury history is not that concerning because his medicals during the draft process turned out pretty clean. Either way, didn't work out. That's never a great thing for a prospect, but he's going to go somewhere. I still think he's going to go day 1. potentially could slide to day 2. We'll see. Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, 6 out of 10 fit here, 6'2", 192, so he fits that part of it, but 4'5", 340, slower than you want, 161, 10-yard split is slower than you want. However, look, he can still get downfield, right? The guy may not have burner speed, Jamison Williams speed, but he can still get downfield. 77.3% catch rate at Ohio State this last season, so he's got the catch rate. He's got all that kind of stuff you want. And if you see him as a potential future X receiver, that is where in the final top 10, he climbs that board because he's got today's Z ability with future X potential. So you like those kinds of things. And a guy like that. Ted Hurst rounds up our top 10 out of Georgia State, 6'4", 206. So he fits the bill there. 4'4", 240, 155, 10-yard split. A little slower than you want. 9'9" overall RAS. Again, he comes from Division II. The competition is going to be questionable. However, he was also like the only guy on his offense that really could do a lot, and he's still able to do quite a lot. So that certainly helps him. I think his future is best as a boundary X receiver. So again, if we're talking about lid lifting Z's, which is what this episode, this focus, this lens is about, that's why he comes in lower. Come back for the X receiver conversation, and I guarantee you that one, he's going to be on there, and I anticipate he's going to be higher on that list than he is here on the Z receiver list. And the holistic rankings of everything, if he's on multiple lists, could be a Z this year, could definitely become a future X type of thing. That's going to help a guy's overall draft status. Tier 5 fits the profile, but basically just missed the cut of the top 10. So they're in like the top 13, 14. Mekhi Lemon actually ended up coming in 11th overall. Of course, he was one of our top, actually, I think he was the top power slot on the list. So that's going to help his overall draftability profile. So don't get too crazy there with me, Mekhi Lemon lovers, because this is not necessarily a bad thing. He's just not the tall, fast, outside Z receiver type. But he certainly fits a little bit of the profile more than some of the other receivers in this class do. Deion Burks in a similar situation at Oklahoma, 5'10", 180 pounds, 4'3", 40 certainly fits the bill. 149 certainly fits the bill. 924 RAS certainly fits the bill. But it's really that length, that lack of length and lack of projection, I should say, put it that way, because it's all projection, right? None of it's guaranteed to be an X receiver. Looks a little bit more like a slot guy than anything else. Zachariah Branch, similar boat, 5'9", 4'3", 540, 1.510. You love the speed. You just need more length out of him if he's going to be that Jamison Williams prototype. Eric Rivers out of Georgia Tech is also on the list. Didn't make the top 10, but they're still on the list, which means we're still talking about him. We're still considering him. We're still thinking about him. And again, the guys on the list are top 10. Jeff Caldwell leads the way out of Cincinnati. Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State. Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee. Malik Benson out of Oregon. De'Zhaun Stribling, Ole Miss. Xavier Thomas, LSU. Brendan Thompson, Mississippi State. Jordan Tyson, Arizona State. Carnell Tate, Ohio State. Ted Hurst, Georgia State. And the biggest value going through. So when we talk about the value, so if I've got them listed value, if we're listing at number 7, what this means is that they'll probably be on the board at number 7, but they're likely going to come off the board at number 71. Now, that could be they'll come off the board at 8. It could be they're going to come off the board at 70. Bottom line is from 70 to 71, they're likely coming off the board. Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Bryce Lance, Chris Brazzell, those 4 receivers expected to be off the board by 71, according to recent mock drafts. Got to put that. This is not NFL inside information. This is according to mock drafts. So that could definitely be a little bit different. Number 71 to 147, you're looking at Stribling coming off the board, Brendan Thompson, Ted Hurst, all coming off the board. Jeff Caldwell from 147 to 187 is likely to come off. Xavier Thomas from 187 to 209 is likely to come off. Nobody is actually likely, according to current mock drafts, to come off the board from 209 to 223, which leaves Malik Benson potentially there at 223 in the 7th round. Gives us Jeff Caldwell as our number 1 fit, athletic profile fit, number 147 pick, 5th rounder, allows you to develop him, allows you to use that athleticism. You got Dyami Brown in there to step in for the meantime, things like that. Malik Benson, number 223 in the 7th round, comes in as our second best value for the Z receiver. Xavier Thomas, number 187 as the 3rd. So obviously these things matter. How important is the position group? All those things, when we get to our final mock draft, we'll stack and rack the position group need based on these values, based on these projections, and get to the whole thing. So don't get too far ahead of me. We're just talking Z receivers, lid lifters on this episode. On the next episode, we're going to be talking about your contested catch demons, X receivers, guys like, well, Terry McLaurin, but Terry McLaurin's getting a little bit older, maybe moves into the slot a little bit more, maybe is going to need to be replaced in the next couple of years because of that age and, one more injury riddled season. And of course, that timeline could get accelerated. So that's next time on Locked On Commanders. I appreciate you coming through for this episode, that episode, and any other future episodes. And in between time, if you need me, you can find me on X at DHarrison82, on Instagram at DHarrison_82, or you can just text me by becoming an all-access member of the Everydayer Club, LockedOnCommanders.supercast.com, to do that today. To the Everydayers, as I do every day, I want to thank you for coming through yet again today. And to everybody, if you're out about, please be safe, be kind. We will talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.